afternoon on this Wednesday, October 30th. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's headlines. Maronite Bishops' Council laments the ongoing political deadlock in Lebanon, given the failure to form a new government and convene parliament. Lakhdar Brahimi holds talks with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in an effort to build support for faltering proposed peace talks. And the official Tunisian news agency says a man has blown himself up in front of a hotel in the Mediterranean resort town. The Maronite Bishops' Council has lamented the ongoing political deadlock in Lebanon, given the failure to form a new government and convene parliament, and also given the unrest in the northern city of Tripoli. It said in a statement that Parliament and Tripoli have become arenas for rival political parties to settle their scores. It also made its remarks after its monthly meeting at Kirki, headed by Patriarch Bashar al-Rai. Moreover, it noted the unrest in Tripoli stems from regional powers settling their scores in the city. It therefore demands that political cover for the gunman in the city be removed, while voicing its support for the implementation of the security plan in the area. It hoped that the army and security forces would be supported in their mission to restore calm in the city, adding that this plan should be adopted throughout Lebanon. A military examining magistrate has issued arrest warrants against a Lebanese and a Turkish national for preparing cars rigged with explosives to detonate them in different areas of Lebanon, including Beirut's southern suburbs. Mohammed al-Atrash, who is a minor, and Turkish citizen Mohammed Sabah ad-Din Özdemir have been in custody for preparing the booby-trapped cars and parking them in different residential areas for the purpose of blowing them up. One of the explosive rigged vehicles has been found this month in Al-Ma'mura district of Beirut's southern suburbs, a Hezbollah stronghold. The explosives were defused before the suspects were able to blow up the car, and Judge Fadi Sawan issued the warrants against them in addition to 4 other fugitives from the Al-Atrash families. The identities of the rest of the 14-member network are not known, but they include an Iraqi explosives expert known as Abu Abdullah, and all the remaining members are Syrians. Endeavors are ongoing to end the cabinet deadlock amid reports that President Michel Sleiman is insisting on forming it ahead of the Independence Day on November 22nd, based on any distribution of portfolios as long as the rival parties agree. Sources closest to Sleiman said in comments published in Al-Liwa newspaper that he is seriously thinking to issue new cabinet decrees ahead of the Independence Day in accordance with Prime Minister-designate Tamam Salam. Sleiman will approve any cabinet formula that the rival political parties agree on, even if it was divided according to 699 cabinet formulas. Sources close to Salam told Al-Liwa that he will not resign as he is holding on to his decision and exerting efforts to form the cabinet ahead of Independence Day. On Tuesday, Sleiman's advisor, former Minister Khalil Hraoui, called on the Lebanese parties to support his endeavors to form a new government. Lakhdar Brahimi, the UN Arab League envoy to Syria, has met with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in Damascus in an effort to shore up support for faltering peace talks. Wednesday's meeting is the first direct contact between the men since Brahimi angered the Syrian leader in December by saying the Assad family's more than 40-year rule of Syria was too long. Brahimi, who is an Algerian diplomat, has also managed to upset the Syrian opposition by saying that Iran, Assad's main backer during the 31-month-old conflict, should attend the so-called Geneva II talks, which are backed by US and Russia. The government, meanwhile, has said it will not talk peace with the armed opposition, further slimming the possibility for the talks to take place. Mohammad Reza Shabani, the Iranian ambassador to Syria, said in Damascus on Wednesday that his country was ready to attend the meeting in Geneva, tentatively planned for November 23rd. And some 500 women, children and elderly civilians trapped in the besieged town of Mu'adamiyat al-Sham, southwest of Damascus, have been evacuated according to activists. Supervised by the Red Crescent, the civilians were escorted from the Syrian rebel town on Tuesday in coordination with the Damascus regime. Rebel-held Mu'adamiyat al-Sham has been under a suffocating army siege for nearly a year. Rights groups and activists have reported widespread malnutrition in the town, particularly among children, because of a total blockade on the entry of food and other vital goods. The army shells Mu'adamiyat al-Sham daily, and clashes rage on its outskirts. The town is the scene of one of the army's chemical attacks near Damascus on August 21st, which killed hundreds of people. Activists in the town issued a statement saying they would have preferred humanitarian assistance to be brought in instead, but did not have a choice. Coming up next, 4 French hostages kidnapped by Al-Qaeda's North African arm 3 years ago are released in Niger. Stay with us. Welcome back. Israel has freed 26 Palestinian prisoners, the second of 4 batches released as part of a deal that is set in motion the current Israeli-Palestinian talks. Jubilean celebrations kicked off this morning in the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip, where the prisoners are seen as heroes who fought for independence and were received by their families and Palestinian leaders. The release was part of an agreement brokered by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry that brought Israel and the Palestinians back to the table for talks that had been paralyzed since 2008. In all, 104 Palestinians are to be released in 4 batches over the coming months. The West Bank and Gaza, hundreds relatives and well-wishers welcomed those freed home. Many have spent more than 20 years in prison. Throngs of people rushed toward the prisoners as they were freed, hoisting them on their shoulders, waving Palestinian flags and dancing to music. Israel's Deputy Defense Minister urged the United States to sideline Middle East peace talks in favor of dealing with the Iranian nuclear issue as a priority. Danny Danon, a hardline member of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party, said that a peace agreement with the Palestinians was wishful thinking in the time frame set aside by the U.S. administration. The direct talks, which are being held in Israel and the West Bank under a U.S.-imposed media blackout, have been set to last 9 months and have so far yielded no concrete results. Danon said stopping Iran from building a nuclear weapon was a far more urgent priority and reiterated that Israel was willing to carry out unilateral military action against Tehran should diplomatic efforts by world powers fail. Western countries, along with Israel, suspect Iran's nuclear activities are aimed at military objectives, a claim Tehran vehemently denies. The official Tunisian news agency says a man has blown himself up in front of a hotel in a Mediterranean resort town. The TAP news agency said the man wearing a belt of explosives was killed. It was not clear if other people were hurt or killed in the explosion in the town of Sousse, about 150 kilometers south of the capital, Tunis. Also on Tuesday, Tunisian police said they captured a man who tried to blow himself up at the tomb of Habib Bourguiba, a former president in the town of Monastir. The latest attack comes a day after Tunisia's army launched a huge operation to track down armed men in the central Sidi Bouzid region. This is according to the Defense Ministry. The armed men had killed 6 policemen in the area last week. And Tunisia has been battling unrest since the overthrow of Zine al-Abidine Ben Ali's regime in 2011 and has seen the rise of self-declared jihadist movements. 4 French hostages kidnapped by Al-Qaeda's North African arm 3 years ago in Niger have been released, according to President François Hollande. Pierre Legrand, Daniel Laribe, Thierry Doll, and Marc Ferret were kidnapped by Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb in September 2010 while working for French nuclear group Arriva and a subsidiary of construction group Vinci and Arlit in Niger. The conditions of the release on Tuesday were not immediately clear, but speaking to French television, Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius denied the government had paid a ransom. The men were expected to travel back to France early on Wednesday, but there was no news about the fate of 3 Swedish, Dutch, and South African men who were also held by Aqim. The men's release gave Hollande a boost just a day after a poll showed he had become the most unpopular French president on record, with the socialist leader hit by anger over tax hikes, unemployment, and rows over the government's immigration policy. Egyptian authorities are detaining a senior Muslim Brotherhood leader known as Issam al-Aryan, the latest arrest in a government crackdown against the Islamist movement, according to an Interior Ministry source. Aryan, the deputy leader of the Brotherhood-linked Freedom and Justice Party, was taken into custody from a residence in New Cairo, where he had been in hiding. The state news agency MENA said Aryan was arrested in New Cairo, but gave no further details. Local media circulated a photograph of what they described as the moment he was arrested, showing a smiling Aryan standing next to a bed with 2 packed duffel bags. Many Brotherhood leaders have been detained and charged with inciting violence since the army, prompted by mass protests, deposed President Mohamed Morsi on July 3rd. And since then, at least 1,000 people, including security forces, have died in the violence that followed Morsi's removal. A speeding bus exploded in a ball of flames after crashing into the central reservation of the southern Indian Highway, killing 45 passengers as they slept. Only 5 people on the vehicle escaped the inferno, including the driver and the cleaner, who broke windows and fled before the fuel tank exploded, according to police. Fatalities were high even by the deadly standards of India, where bus crashes are common, particularly on the treacherous roads of the northern Himalayas. Police said the driver and cleaner had tried to flee the scene of the accident, which occurred around 5 a.m. between Bangalore and Hyderabad. They tried to run, but the police caught them, according to local police spokesman who uses only one name. Relatives of the victim screamed and broke down in tears outside the office of the vehicle operator in Hyderabad, about 140 kilometers from the crash site. And the head of German foreign intelligence denied that Berlin was carrying out bugging operations from its embassy in the United States in a deepening espionage row. Reports that the U.S. National Security has agency listed in on the communications of dozens of foreign leaders, including German Chancellor Angela Merkel, had provoked outrage in Germany and across Europe. On Tuesday, General Keith Alexander, the head of the NSA, and the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, told lawmakers that foreign nations were also spying on U.S. leaders. They dismissed as completely false allegations that American spy agencies had swept up data on millions of European phone calls. They said European media that had been those claims based on leaks from fugitive analyst Edward Snowden did not understand the data they were using to make those allegations. On that note, we end our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. The Maronite Bishops' Council laments the ongoing political deadlock in Lebanon, given the failure to form a new government and convene parliament. Lahjar Brahimi holds talks with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in an effort to build support for faltering proposed peace talks. And the official Tunisian news agency says a man has blown himself up in front of a hotel in a Mediterranean resort town. Those are your Wednesday headlines live on Future Television in Beirut. I'm Yumna Naufal, wishing you all a good night.